It's getting seriouser and seriouser when it comes to Ukraine aid. Karen Travers standing by. President Biden on Monday told reporters he'd meet with Speaker Johnson to say, this Ukraine thing's got to get done. What are we doing here? Now, it's a shift from what the White House has said before. Karen joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what is the Biden White House going to do? Are they forcing this meeting, or is Johnson in?
I mean, I have to say, we'll see if this meeting actually happens. What the president said yesterday was, I'd be happy to meet with him if he has anything to say. That is not the president saying he is going to sit down later this week with Speaker Johnson because he's ready to negotiate. The White House has been very clear that they did not see a value in this meeting while Johnson is holding up legislation that was passed with bipartisan support in the Senate, the $95 billion foreign aid bill that sent money to Ukraine and Taiwan and Israel. And, of course, as we talked about last week, doesn't have any border security elements in that. That's because Speaker Johnson and House Republicans said they weren't going to pass what the Senate had agreed to, so it was taken out. I think the president yesterday is saying, look, let's talk, but they want to see the House move forward on what the Senate passed. They don't want to renegotiate this at this point because they spent weeks, months in the Senate getting to that point. The White House this morning is calling that the toughest border legislation, bipartisan legislation in decades, and they feel that is the best option that is on the table right now. And they want to see House Republicans move forward on that, not try and reopen negotiations that they feel won't have a chance of passing in the Senate.
Well, but Johnson, and I'm just talking about reality here, Johnson, who is at best a mulligan speaker, in that he was the guy that, was still there with a pulse that they somehow were able to get enough votes to become speaker. But he has no big thump or authority. He hasn't been able to exercise any sway over the fringe elements in the House, and it seems like there's more of those every day. So regardless of what he may want to do, I don't know that he can get anything done.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too. I think that there's a sense at the White House that if you meet with Johnson and what you could talk about, what can he actually deliver then in the House? You have a very slim majority. You have a very rambunctious right flank for Mike Johnson, who is going to make things difficult for him and is not going to accept anything that is perhaps bipartisan or something that the Senate has already moved forward on. So I think for the White House, they're just kind of questioning where this could go and what the point, as Karine Jean-Pierre kept saying last week, what would be the point of having a negotiation right now with Johnson? What can he actually deliver on in the House? Look, Joe Biden considers himself a long creature of Congress, having served decades in the Senate. And as he likes to say, he appreciates the value of in-person meetings, too. He likes the face-to-face negotiation. So it was always surprising that they were completely ruling out a meeting with Johnson, saying flat out last week, we're not going to do it, because that's not necessarily Joe Biden's style. So by him opening the door slightly yesterday, that maybe gets conversations going, but I just don't see this as some significant breakthrough that the president and Johnson could agree to in a meeting.
I know we got less than a minute here, but we live in a land of make-believe, and is anybody talking about this? What's it going to take? A strategic missile of the nuke variety by Russia before people wake up and realize how big a deal this is?
I mean, I think for the White House, they're trying to just keep up the daily pressure of saying what's happening. You have, obviously this other critical city where the Ukrainian military is backing away from in order to save their ammunition, save their men, save their supplies. And that is something that the administration is worried that you're going to continue seeing. They are running low. As the White House said in the statement this morning, Russia just saw its most significant gains in Ukraine in nearly a year because Ukraine is running low on supplies and Congress has failed to pass critically needed support. And they're saying that this is because of House Republicans failing to act because they're on recess right now while that Senate bill is at their hands and they could be passing it.
Karen Travers, ABC News, thank you.
Thank you.
And, that's encouraging.
Yeah, it's interesting, too.
And by that's encouraging, I mean, that's not encouraging.
No, it's not encouraging, but it's interesting, too. the insight into what's happening there.
You can play make-believe all day long and act like NATO doesn't matter and have an isolationist policy and just let Putin go a little further. He's the guy that just poisoned Alexei Navalny. He's the guy that you can't trust. He's the guy that mocked Tucker Carlson when he came over for his big interview. He doesn't care about anything except Putin and Russia. He's not interested in a world relationship. No. He's not interested in what's right for America. Give me a frickin' break.
And talk about the NATO. Talk about the NATO thing as well, because we said we're not going to support that because we're doing our own aid.
No. We're all in for NATO, and the argument is, and this is Trump's argument. And Trump's not wrong in the big picture about this. Of course, countries ought to pay what everybody else pays. But the idea that the United States would pull out of NATO is insane. NATO was set up to organize the new world after World War II, the peaceable or hopefully peaceable Western world.
Right.
So to have all these countries to be part of NATO, many of which were former Soviet satellite republics around the border, and a country like Poland, historically, of course, Hitler walked in. They're a little touchy about people just walking in. And to be right on the border as well. If Ukraine falls, then is there incentive for China to jump in and suddenly throw a bunch of money at Putin to keep pushing the envelope?
Right.
And I think where Jane was going was that the NATO's Secretary General has said the longer Congress keeps holding up this funding,
that's right,
the worse off things are going to get in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah,
we Kiev's force. We
100%.
need
that was the
U.S. to commit.
Right, and I saw that Friday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was late last week.
Yeah, 100%.
And here they are on vacation for another week.
Right.
Well, thank goodness. Good Lord. I mean, they need a break. You know, they work 100 days a year.